Jiraiya's tenure as a Hokage has been fraught with tragedies. The Nine Tails Rampage, the war with Kumo, the Hyuga Affair, the Uchiha Uprising, the Konoha Crush. Jiraiya's nightmare come true. He is the Hokage of a village full of so much international drama. It seems as if there's always someone out to destroy the village, and if you think it's going to stop at that, then you're wrong. As it stands, there are many who hope to take over, to destroy it. And the malevolent forces moving against Konoha can be found from the outside and within. Once more, Jiraiya will find himself under fire as Hokage in a deep state conspiracy to have him removed. How will he weather this storm? Let's peek in and see, shall we? But before that, welcome to the Amagi. Before we begin, we publish a new video every day, so if you subscribe in the next 15 minutes, your favorite competitive video game character will get insane buffs in the next patch. And if you ring the bell, all of your rivals will get some nerfs. The Amagi's reach stretches beyond just this channel, so if you're a fan of us, please consider subscribing to our other channels and following us on all of our social media. Help us reach our goal of passing 100,000 followers on all of our accounts by the end of the year. Fugaku sat in the darkness as he always did. He was getting a little hammered by this time, but his bitterness and hatred had yet to lose their edge. He looked back on the whole thing. A single stupid genjutsu had ruined everything. All he had wanted was the honor of the Uchiha restored, to be heard, and when it seemed that there was no other recourse, he felt that they should take back what was rightfully theirs. But his cursed son, that prodigy of a brat Itachi, had to get in the way of everything, and now there was nothing left for him. He sat there, and on the table before him was a single tanto. Makoto was out, so now there was nobody left to stop him. His honor had been stolen, ripped from him by the one he had birthed. He lifted the blade, still as of yet sheathed in its saya. With this, he would reclaim his honor, and this single action of harakiri would serve as a silent protest to his son that in sparing his father's life, he had merely damned to an existence of dishonor and shame. No more. Let this blade cut away his life and his shame and restore him to peace in whatever form it came in. Suddenly, his ears picked up a sound, the sound of a foot dragging across the tatami carpet. Fugaku had always been proud of his sensory abilities, but at this moment he sensed nothing, not a hint of chakra, yet his ears told no lies. Someone was there. He stood and unsheathed his tanto. "Who's there?" A gruff voice from across the room spoke as it sat in a chair by the window, blowing smoke from a pipe into the outside air. "I would ask if you wanted me to show myself, but I highly doubt that's possible for you." Fugaku heard the voice. He lifted 3 shuriken, each one wedged between his fingers. He threw them at the source of the voice. "Begone, Danzo Shimura. I have nothing to say to you." Danzo didn't even move. He just watched as the 3 shuriken buried themselves into the wood with 3 audible thunks. "Always off the mark. Of course, you are the same even with your eyes." Fugaku snarled. "Have you come to witness my shame and laugh, you old fool?" Danzo laughed a bit. "Your shame does bring me pleasure, but alas, I'm not here. I'm here to stop you from making a mistake." "The only mistake was not locking my door," Fugaku said. Danzo rolled his eyes. "As if a single thing could ever keep me out." Fugaku sat down again. "What did you come here for?" Danzo looked over. "I came here to offer you a chance to restore your honor without killing yourself." Fugaku sat there for a moment. "Fine, I'm listening." Danzo would then continue. "Most recently, I had a young shinobi murdered. One you know and loathe well. One of those who stood against you during the uprising." Fugaku's brow lowered. "Shisui." Danzo continued. "I'm going to offer you a shot." "A shot at what?" Fugaku asked. "A shot at revenge. Revenge on Jiraiya. Revenge on Konoha. Revenge on Itachi. Your son stole from you your Mangekyou Sharingan and has since awakened his own. Do you know what that means?" Fugaku's brow furrowed. "It means the eternal Mangekyou Sharingan is within my grasp." Danzo nodded, though this was more for himself as Fugaku could not see it. It was clear on Fugaku's face that he was considering this, but then he stopped. "It's impossible. Itachi's far too powerful. I can't beat him, at least not as I am now." Danzo stood from his chair and slowly made his way over. He sat down on the table 2 things that had been both bagged and tagged by the Anbu. Fugaku could sense the remnants of chakra emanating from them and knew exactly what they were. "Sharingan. How did—" "Don't ask that question. Never ask questions you don't want answers to. Suffice it to say, this is your golden ticket. These will be a gift from me to you regardless. A showing of goodwill. But should you feel that you're willing to chase your goals further, let me know, and I'll use Shisui's genjutsu to remove the fog from your people's eyes." Fugaku held the 2 packages in his hands. "Why? Why?" Danzo looked down at Fugaku as he continued to question this. "Why are you doing this?" We were moved here by you due to your fear that we were going to overthrow the village. Then we actually tried to, and now you're going to aid us in overthrowing the village leadership? I don't understand. Why? What are you going to get out of this?" Danzo turned and began to leave. "Because I think it's time for someone new to lead this village. Jiraiya is going to lead us into the ground. Your uprising presents the perfect chance to eliminate him. Keep this quiet and between us. If you opt out, those Sharingan are meant to buy your silence. But if you ever decide to give in to your hatred, merely say so, and I will let free the hatred that Shisui capped up with artificial compliance." Danzo left the home, leaving Fugaku alone to think. Sasuke was staying at Itachi's apartment now. He had all but moved in. It wasn't like Mikoto could blame them after he'd been struck by Fugaku's bottle, and she would even come over to cook for them every so often and bring things she thought Sasuke might need. Fugaku never said a word about it. He was too miserable and self-pitying to really care. The two brothers had grown closer than ever, and that promise of some other day by Itachi had become the promise of today, or so it had been. Currently, Itachi was in bed resting. Sasuke sat down on the couch outside. The door was shut as Itachi didn't want Sasuke to see him in his weakened state. Itachi had grown worried and asked Tsunade to look at him. She would eventually come back. Sasuke would stand. "I ran the tests and he has a higher than average level of IRT in his bloodstream." Sasuke stood there with a worried and confused look on his face. "Well, what does that mean?" "Your brother appears to be suffering from cystic fibrosis. That's been causing the rupture of blood vessels in his airways and the scarring of the tissue within. It seems like he had it for a while and it went undiscovered. Was he never screened as an infant?" Sasuke didn't answer. He didn't know. Sasuke nodded. "He's in the late stages of it. It's a miracle he's been doing as well as he has." Sasuke showed her a bottle he had found. She looked at it. "Ah, he's been previously diagnosed." Sasuke seemed worried. "Can you heal him?" She looked at him. She shook her head slightly. "Cystic fibrosis is a genetic disorder. There's no cure to it. You can only increase quality of life and try to stave it off for as long as possible." "Well, how long does he have?" Sasuke asked. Tsunade gave a slight shrug. "I don't know. His most recent scans show he's in its last stages. In fact, I would say that he shouldn't even be alive right now. He's holding on for something, and I think that something is you." Tears begin to well up in Sasuke's eyes. Can I go see him?" She nodded. "He's resting right now. You can see him. I'm going back to the center and try to find something that maybe can help. With the power of our medical ninjutsu, we may be able to find something that can maybe reverse some of the damage." Sasuke watched as she left. He slowly opened the door to Itachi's room to see his brother laying in his bed, facing away from the door. Sasuke pulled up a chair and sat by the bed. He didn't speak. He didn't move. Sasuke just sat there. All night long, the only sound was the wheezing of his brother as he worked to breathe. Naruto was in his bed once more, looking up at the ceiling. He connected the star stickers on his ceiling and looked at the constellations as he lay there, trying to go to sleep. He couldn't help but think about Itachi's brother. Sasuke had always been strong and powerful, but this was the first time Naruto had ever seen Sasuke with such clear terror on his face. Not even when they faced Haku and Zabuza did he ever show fear like this. Naruto wished he could will this pain away for his friend, but what was there for him to do about it? He was a shinobi, not a doctor. All he could do was hope that Granny Tsunade could do something about it. Outside of Naruto's room in the Hokage's office, Jiraiya sat there, looking over papers, approving some, disapproving others, doing his standard work for the day, which was a lot more than normal. Since the Konoha Crush, much of the village had been devastated, and he was now required to work overtime just to reach deadlines and make ends meet. He sat all the papers down and rubbed his eyes. He looked at the clock. It was already 1 a.m. He sighed as he leaned back in his chair. He tried to rub the fog from his eyes. "Long night?" a voice said as it passed through the door. "They've all been long nights since the Chunin disaster." Tsunade walked in. She held a bottle of sake in her hands. "How about a drink?" And so Jiraiya moved his work to the coffee table by the couch and both sat down with a glass. Jiraiya trusted Tsunade immensely, so her offer to help him with his work really meant a lot. She looked down at the papers. "What, no crayon?" "Har har, laugh it up. It was one time," he said as he downed his first glass. He poured a second one for himself. "Let's take a break from work for the moment. Naruto's upset. He wants to know if Itachi's gonna be okay. Is he?" Tsunade's look and avoidance of eye contact was telling. "He's pretty bad off. I don't know how much longer he has to go. Late diagnosis and a hard life have left him with little time. It seems he's been sick for a while and he already had medication for it." Jiraiya grunted as he leaned back in his chair. "Why didn't he say anything? I could have removed him from active duty." "That's probably why he didn't say anything," Tsunade said. "His only duties are to his brother and to his village. Coming from experience in the field, people need more than just medication to overcome illness. They need a reason to live, and— "But it's killing him," Jiraiya said. Tsunade just sat back and sighed. "Maybe it is, but even so, what's worse? To live a short life and be happy, or to live a longer one and be miserable? Jiraiya hated to agree with this, but she had a point. Tsunade always was as wise as she was intelligent. She knew how to heal people both physically and mentally. It was hard to say that there was another person he knew with the ability to read a human more than Tsunade. "Why didn't you become Hokage?" he asked her. She looked back. "Because I really didn't want to." "Yeah, well, neither did I, and I suck at it." She laughed. "You do not suck at it." He looked over. "I do. Let me count the ways. There was the Iwa War, the Nine Tails attack, the Hyuga incident." She scoffed. "You don't suck. You're a good Kage." "The Uchiha Uprising, the Konoha Crush." She slapped the arm of the couch. "Listen, you're not a bad Kage. Those things were out of your control. Sometimes there are moments where you need to admit that the best you can do is damage control. And if I'm being honest, I'm gonna say that you're a better candidate for being Hokage than I am. Maybe I'm smarter and prettier and stronger and cooler." "Get to the point, Sue." "But you have one thing that I've never been able to compare with for all my life." He looked at her with curiosity. "And what would that be?" She smiled. "Heart, your empathy, the way you looked after those kids in Ame. Orochimaru wanted to kill them, and I didn't care either which way. But you didn't just help them, you freaking adopted and moved in with them. That's a lot more than I would have ever done on my best day. And that's what makes you a good leader. You're the heart of the village. You remind people that someone cares about them, that their leader loves them, that you will always do your best to work in their best interests. That makes you a trusted leader." He turned to look right at her, both body and face. "Really? You think so?" She laughed a touch. "I know so." He blushed a little. "You know, you always were so beautiful." She looked at him and smirked. "Last time you called me that, I broke your ribs. Are you willing to risk it again?" He nodded. "Break my ribs, break my heart, it doesn't matter. I always survive." She leaned in and kissed him. He was shocked. She spoke. "Maybe it's time I heal those own wounds." She leaned in once more, but as she did so, shinobi burst through the window, each one wearing Anbu masks. "The hell?" Jiraiya stood, as did Tsunade. "What's the meaning of this?" He noticed that each one bore a glowing red eye below their masks. "Uchiha!" Just then, from the door to the side, another group of shinobi rushed in. More Uchiha. But behind them, wearing his old flak jacket, Fugaku stepped in, his eyes glowing with even more fire than ever, the new Mangekyou Sharingan design bearing a striking resemblance to the symbol of yin and yang, two tadpoles of light and darkness caught in a perpetual cycle, chasing after each other's tails. Jiraiya stood there. "Fugaku, what's the meaning of this?" Fugaku grinned. "It's the conclusion to a show that started 6 years ago. The revenge and final victory of the Uchiha clan is nigh, and all it requires is a blood sacrifice on the altar of our ambition. The sacrifice is you, Lord Fourth." The mentioning of Jiraiya's title almost sounded like an insult in the way he said it. Jiraiya began to wonder what happened to the rest of the guard. He was already instinctively in sage mode. He looked back at Tsunade, whose strength of 100 seal was already active as well, the black markings spanning and swirling about her body like vines of some mystical rose. "Naruto," he whispered to her. Her eyes looked over at him. Jiraiya continued to whisper, "I still sense Naruto. He's not been captured yet. We need to get him out before they try to take him." Tsunade smiled. Fugaku scoffed. "You might as well speak out loud. It's not like whispering will do you any good." Suddenly, Jiraiya threw a smoke bomb as Tsunade turned and punched a hole through the wall. Together, the two ran, making their way down the hall as the Uchiha also jumped through the hole to give chase. In the smoke left behind, the Sharingan of Fugaku burned like coals as he shouted, "You won't get away from me." They made it down the hall as Tsunade opened the door. They stepped in and closed it behind them. They barred the door with a chair as Naruto sat up in bed. "Huh?" Tsunade ran over and lifted him over her shoulder. "I got him. Let's get out of here." Jiraiya was now pressing against the door with his back as the legs of the chair had snapped under the force of the Uchiha. "I gotta hold them off. Get Naruto out of here," he shouted. Tsunade shouted back at him, "Not without you." He looked over at her. "This is my duty. Just go." With tears in her eyes, she grit her teeth. "When this is over, I'm breaking your ribs again." He smiled. "I look forward to it." Suddenly, there was a coordinated effort by the Uchiha to bust the door down, which nearly knocked Jiraiya out of the way. "Hurry! Go!" Tsunade walked to the window and opened it up, securing Naruto to her back as if she were about to give him the piggyback ride of his life, and indeed she was. Together, they jumped out of the window to the nearest roof and began to flee. Suddenly, Jiraiya heard a thunk on the door behind him. "Huh? Uh-oh." Suddenly, the door exploded, sending Jiraiya into the wall directly opposite the door. He slid down on his face. He turned to face the door as the Uchiha entered the room. Behind them was Fugaku. "Sent the Nine Tails away, huh? If that's how it'll be." Fugaku snapped his fingers. The Uchiha picked Jiraiya up. Fugaku looked into Jiraiya's eyes with all the bitterness he had accumulated over the past 6 years. Take him. Sasuke had fallen asleep on the chair next to Itachi. Itachi had turned to face him and just smiled, looking at his little brother so concerned with his well-being. He guessed the beans were spilled. He must already have known by now. Itachi would sit up. The medication he had taken seemed to be kicking in as the inflammation in his lungs was going away, at least for the time being. He stood. He felt a little weak, but nonetheless he stood. He lifted Sasuke up and gently laid him in the bed and covered him as he lovingly kissed his forehead. Itachi stepped out of the room and into the kitchen, where he went to the fridge to find something to eat, a little something to drink too. And so he did. As he did so though, he heard a sound at the door, a loud knock. Itachi, mid-bite into a bologna and tomato sandwich, made his way to the door as he downed some orange juice and peeked through the peephole before opening the door. Lady Tsunade. And Naruto? He asked in confusion as Tsunade looked behind her before pushing her way through. Itachi could barely get out of the way in time. What are you doing here? Close the door, quickly! Lock it! Itachi did as she commanded, putting every lock on the door, which was a considerable amount. He turned back and walked into the living room where she finally sat Naruto down. What happened? He asked. Tsunade peeked out the window at the Hokage's residence where the lights had already come on. Throughout the village, there were flashes of light, explosions, and smoke and fire. Your father happened. Itachi seemed more than a little confused. Huh? By this time, Sasuke was waiting by the door. What about our father? Sasuke asked. Tsunade looked back. Somehow the bastard got new eyes, and he started a new uprising. Just then, another hand knocked on the door. Tsunade looked back. She pulled the kunai and made her way to the door. She peeked out to see a man bandaged and elderly. She opened the door. Danzo, what the hell are you doing here? I came to find you. Have you seen what's happened? She crossed her arms. No, I haven't seen it. Of course I've seen it. Who couldn't see it? May I come in? Danzo asked. Tsunade stepped aside to let him in. Danzo walked a little deeper. He looked to Sasuke and Itachi for a moment before stopping by the window, peeking through the blinds as the village became a war zone. Apparently Fugaku snapped. He stole a set of Sharingan from his subordinate and forced Shisui to undo his Kodo Amatsukame before disposing of him. I warned Jiraiya that this is only a temporary fix, but he wouldn't listen. Now the uprising is back on. Tsunade stood there for a moment. So what do we do then? Danzo looked back. I have the entire Root Division and the Loyalists in Anbu currently coordinating at the mountain base just beyond that ridge. We're going to launch a counteroffensive soon, and we can't do anything until we save the 4th Hokage. Tsunade was surprised. Jiraiya's alive. Danzo pulled out a VHS tape. This was provided by Fugaku. He put the tape into the VCR and pressed play. A fuzzy recording of Fugaku and his elite Uchiha warriors standing over Jiraiya played. Jiraiya was beaten, bloody, and swollen, being held by his arms by Uchiha. Fugaku stood behind him, his eyes glowing like fire, the flames of hatred burning deeply within them. As you can see, I have your Hokage in my grip, and I will not let him go. Not until you fulfill my demands. First, I want you to turn over Naruto Uzumaki. Second, I want you to turn over Itachi Uchiha as well. Failure to do so will not only result in the destruction of the 4th Hokage, but the destruction of the Hyuga, Nara, Yamanaka, and Akamichi clans. This is non-negotiable. Have them presented to the Hokage's office by sunrise, or we'll destroy the entire village as Madara Uchiha once attempted. The video then shut off. Tsunade smashed the television with her fist. This is bullshit. He's demanding we turn over Naruto just to cement his place as ruler of the village? Why don't we just use Naruto to destroy him? Naruto just sat there listening. Danzo then spoke. It's because he's currently holding Hiyashi Hyuga, Shikaku Nara, Inoichi Yamanaka, and Choza Akamichi hostage. These are the most powerful clan heads in the village. Without them, we really don't have a village. If we don't turn Naruto over, he's going to kill them and exterminate their clans. Tsunade, still fuming, continued. If we hand them over to that bastard, we still won't have a village. Danzo raised his hands. Easy. I never said I disagreed with you. It's why Root and the Anbu are currently coordinating. Tsunade then spoke. So what's your plan then? Danzo looked back. Each of you will have a very special job. He points to Tsunade and Naruto. The two of you must go to the Naka Shrine. That's where they're holding the clan heads. If you can get them free, you can probably escape with them, thereby robbing the Uchiha of their leverage. While you do that, Itachi and Sasuke must confront Fugaku. This time, there is no mercy. He has to die. Itachi stood there and looked down and away. Sasuke shook his head. No, my father doesn't need to die. Danzo looked over to Sasuke. I'm sorry, Sasuke, but this is the second revolt he's led. There's no way back. He's become a persistent threat. Even Hashirama didn't spare his best friend for threatening the village on multiple occasions. He must die. Itachi looked back. No, I'll do it. Sasuke should stay back. I don't want him to have that blood in his hands. Sasuke shook his head again. No, Itachi, you're sick. You can't. Itachi turned around and knelt down. This is all my fault. I was too weak to kill my father, our father, before. And because of that, the village is suffering. I must make amends. Stay here. I don't want you to have blood on your hands. He then looked back at Tsunade. Naruto can't go on that mission in PJs. I've got an extra outfit for Sasuke in the other room. He can wear that. Maybe it'll help him blend in better behind enemy lines. Tsunade nodded and let Naruto go off to get changed. Itachi, on the other hand, stood and grabbed his gear. He stood and looked back at Sasuke for a moment. Sasuke possessed a look of terror on his face. He smiled and walked over to him and touched his head to his brothers. I'll see you later, Sasuke. He then walked out the door. Sasuke stood there. I can't sit here and do nothing. I can't let my brother always be the one to bear these burdens. I have to go too. He too would walk out the door. Itachi was moving through the cool of the night, jumping from rooftop to rooftop, avoiding the battle on the ground. As he jumped, he heard a crying sound. He stopped by the edge and looked down to see that in the middle of the fray, a lost child was walking the streets and crying. Itachi would jump down into the streets quietly, before grabbing the child and jumping to a roof. As he set the child down, he pat their head. See, it's all okay. The child then smiled. Ever so gullible, eh, Itachi? The child transformed to reveal itself to be an adult in disguise, an Uchiha Chunin who began to do battle with him. As their blades clashed, Itachi used the momentum of the Chunin and rolled on his back and kicked him off the roof. Maybe Itachi was gullible, but he wasn't weak. He stood and ran off towards the Hokage's residence. He stopped on the building overlooking the residence and activated his Mangekyo Sharingan to get a better look at the surrounding area. What do you see? Sasuke asked. Itachi nearly fell over and raised a fist. He let out a breath that he'd been holding in. Damn it, Sasuke, don't sneak up on me. You almost gave me a heart attack. Sorry, Sasuke said as he looked over the side of the building. He then looked over. Itachi then spoke as he sat up. What do you see? Sasuke scanned the area. Most of the forces are on the ground. The roof has little to no guard on them. That's our ticket inside. Itachi nodded. Good plan. They would then, the both of them, jump onto the power lines and begin to make their way across it to the other side. Once on the other roof, they began to enter. At that time, they met up with the Anbu and Root, both of whom were going to help them with the extra forces. They made their way in and began to head down. As they did so, they would encounter many Uchiha warriors, but the Anbu and Root would clear a path. Sasuke and Itachi would run towards the Hokage's office. Upon entering it, they would see Fugaku sitting in the Hokage's chair at the desk. He turned around to look at them. It's been a while since I last saw you, my sons, he said, his Mangekyo glowering. Sasuke and Itachi stood there. Why did you have to do this, father? Itachi asked. Why couldn't you just let this die? Fugaku stood. Because my life was a hellhole. A hole that you threw me into. My life lost meaning. You cast me into shame. Itachi snarled. For all the talk of loving the clan, the moment it got tough on you, you weren't afraid to kill another of our clan just for their eyes. Fugaku slammed his fist on the table. Shut up. I didn't kill a single Uchiha. I was on the verge of ritual suicide when he approached me and presented them to me, along with a chance after he killed your friend. Itachi and Sasuke seemed confused. Who? Danzo Shimura. I don't know what he wants or why he's helping me, but I don't trust him. That's why I didn't immediately kill Jiraiya. And now I can see that I was right. Root's moving in already to exterminate us. This was all part of that crafty old prune's plan. Itachi would have said he was surprised, but in reality, he wasn't. He never trusted Danzo. Sasuke spoke up. Father, it's not too late. If you just tell the village about Danzo, you'll be pardoned for any wrongdoings, especially if Koto Amatsukami's involved. Fugaku scoffed. Yeah, as if I want to waste time with that. All I want right now is to kill Itachi and take the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan for myself. He stepped beside the desk and prepared an attack. Itachi put his hands out in front of Sasuke. There's no talking him out of this. All we can do now is our duty. Stay back. I won't let you stain your hands with his blood. Fugaku smirked. You think I'm gonna let you win again? I took it too easy on you last time. This time, you're dead. A son of mine you are no longer. Now we're just two warriors with a score to settle. Now, if you're ready for your ultimate fate, then follow me to the roof. Fugaku jumped out the window and began to run up the side of the building to the roof of the Hokage's residence, where they would have plenty of room to fight. Itachi put his hands on Sasuke's shoulder. Stay here. I'll go. Try and find Jiraiya. Itachi then stepped out of the window and made his way to the roof just as Fugaku had bidden. Once he had reached the roof, he stepped towards his father as the clouds gathered above, discharging their lightning and letting loose a downpour of rain. Itachi stood there. No words could be said. None needed to be. Their eyes did all the talking. Looking into the yin-yang pattern of his father's loaned Mangekyo Sharingan, Itachi knew that his father was too far gone to be rescued. Not even Sasuke or even Mikoto could pull him from this. And so Itachi began to fight. All the while, Sasuke was creeping through the residence. He began to make his way down into the holding cells. He passed by Kabuto, who had seemingly begun to fall into insanity. Moving beyond, he found Jiraiya, laying on the floor on his side. Sasuke found the keys and opened the lock before stepping inside. Lord Fourth, it's me! He rolled Jiraiya over. Jiraiya opened his eyes. Oh, hey Sasuke, I was just taking a power nap, he said as his face immediately grimaced. Sasuke spoke. Lord Fourth, we just learned that the true conspirator of this uprising was Danzo. He coerced father into this. Please, hurry, we need your help. Itachi's going to kill him. I don't want him to kill our father. Jiraiya struggled to stand. Together they began to make their way up to the roof. Itachi stood there, panting heavily, blood dripping from his nose and mouth as his Susanoo covered his body. Against him was his father, now wielding a Susanoo of his own. What's the matter, Itachi? Finally hit the wall? Itachi continued to do battle. As confident as his father was, he was at the disadvantage. Itachi's Susanoo was stronger, but at the same time it was flickering out due to the strain on his body. Suddenly he fell to his knees. He couldn't hold it any longer. His Susanoo disappeared as he coughed up blood. Fugaku walked closer. Poor Itachi. Fate has finally forced penance on you for betraying your father. How does it feel to know that you will die, broken and unloved? I hope you feel that way, because that's how I felt all those years, up until only a few days ago. Itachi looked up. You're an idiot. I loved you with all my heart. I had been commanded to kill you, but I found the only other solution that resulted in your survival. But I suffered because I loved you, and would have rather seen you live life blinded than not at all. Fugaku looked down on him. You should have killed me. That was your biggest mistake. At that moment, Jiraiya and Sasuke appear on the roof. Sasuke runs over and covers Itachi with his body. Please, father, enough! Please, father, enough! Fugaku scoffed. If you side with Itachi, then you side against me. That makes you just as much a traitor as he. Sasuke shook his head. No, I won't let you kill him. Fugaku growled. Fine then, you can die along with him. Fugaku's Susanoo prepared to stab the both of them, but suddenly Itachi released his Susanoo in a burst so strong that it nearly knocked Fugaku off the roof. He held on just barely by his fingers. Itachi vomited blood and wheezed as his Susanoo faded. He looked at Sasuke and smiled. Are you okay, little brother? He asked through labored breaths. Sasuke nodded. I am. You are too. Just rest. I can do the rest. Itachi looked at him. You'll have to. I'm fried. Sasuke helped him. Please, Itachi, don't die. Itachi kissed Sasuke's forehead, leaving behind only blood in the shape of a kiss mark. I will always be with you. And in that moment, Itachi fell forward. There he died. Sasuke was full of so much sorrow. He cried to the skies as lightning crackled throughout. Fugaku slowly began to pull himself up, but as he did so, he looked to see Sasuke standing over him. Sasuke looked down, eyes glowing as a Mangekyo Sharingan formed in them. These eyes showed no pity or love. Fugaku saw Itachi and then looked up at Sasuke once more. Let's not be hasty, Sasuke. It's me, son. Sasuke looked down on him. I have no father. Suddenly, he set Fugaku alight with Amaterasu before kicking him off the side of the building. At that moment, both Root and the Anbu swept the village. There was no saving them as all Uchiha were under Danzo's genjutsu. All Uchiha that night perished save for Sasuke himself. As the battle drew to a close though, Jiraiya would immediately put Danzo under arrest for treason and would have him executed. Root would be officially disbanded and once more peace would return. Sasuke would stand before the grave of his brother as the sky let off light rain. Behind him, Naruto would put his hand on his shoulder and stand there. Together, the two would look down at the grave, paying their respects. Itachi was a man who had sacrificed everything for his village and his people, and most of all for Sasuke. There was no way to be able to repay that kind of debt. No way at all. So instead, a statue of Itachi would be erected by the statue of the Will of Fire, and by both statues would be a long marble slab where the names of every hero who died in defense of the village would be written, and so that never again would a shinobi suffer and die unrecognized for what they had done. And at that time, the names of every Uchiha in the village were written on that slab. Jiraiya himself would stand by the broken window and look out over the village. It's gonna take months to rebuild, he said. Well, at least they can rebuild, Tsunade said from the doorframe. She walked in and stood beside him. The two looked out over the village. Jiraiya took a deep breath in and sighed. See, this is why I feel like I'm a bad Hokage. I didn't deal properly with the last uprising, which led to this one. Tsunade looked at him. Will you just stop? You're not a bad Hokage. You and Hiruzen both share the same problem. You're both too kind and humble at heart. These are good qualities in a man, but they can be detrimental to a leader if not properly moderated. You've led this village through some tough times, and we're coming out of them far better than we would have without you. So instead of constantly doubting yourself, why don't you actually try being proud for a change? The village still exists because of you. Just sit down and say that you did a good job for once. Jiraiya just kept looking out over the village. Jiraiya turned to face him. Say it, out loud. Jiraiya stood there. She urged him again. Say it. Jiraiya mumbled. Say it louder. Jiraiya took a deep breath and spoke. I did a good job. She smiled. You're damn right. She leaned in and kissed him. Together they exchanged that kiss. Jiraiya had always been a bit of a ladies' man, but he was never serious about any of them. None except one, and it was the one currently in his arms. He had waited so long for this and had grown so old just waiting, but now it all seemed worth it in the end. He pulled back and looked at her with a smile. I really did do good, didn't I? And scene. Let's put a bookmark in this for now until we're ready for chapter 5. I hope you've all been enjoying this. I certainly had a ball making it for you. I really did enjoy the dynamic formed by Itachi and Fugaku's first fight, and now it finally reached a head. Feel free to give some of your own ideas as to where this should go next or what should have been changed. I like hearing your critiques, helps me form a story you will all like better. And until next time, peace out.
Did you enjoy our video? Well then be sure to check out these other great videos from the Amagi, and make sure to subscribe and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos.